Alright, here we go. In this video, we're going to see how we can install Active Directory Domain Controller or Active Directory services on Windows Server 2016. So last week, we looked at the way how we can install Windows Server 2016 on a virtual machine. So this is the virtual machines we installed last week. As you can see now, I have changed the computer name here to DZ01 and the private firewall is turned off for private networks, and it has got a static IP address, and also this machine is completely updated. So since everything is there, we can just go ahead and do the installation, and also you can see that the time zone is being configured properly, so it's matched with the local time as well, right? So the machine is pretty much ready, has got a static IP address. So you can see this machine has got a static IP address on the network interface card. Um, so 20.3 is what the static IP address. On NAT mode, I've got a NAT gateway. And if you look at the DNS, I have just got the DNS server as this machine's IP address, because once you install these services, I'm going to install Active Directory, but when you install the Active Directory, I'll tick the option to install DNS as well. So since I have ticked the option DNS, or since I'm going to tick the DNS option, um, after you install the Active Directory and DNS services, this machine will become the domain controller. So that's the reason I have kept the IP address, DNS IP address as the same machine IP address, right? So pretty much the machine is all set to go. Let's go start the installation. So how we can install? To install Active Directory, what we have to do is we have to go to the server manager. On server manager, click on manage and then click on add roles and features. So when you click add roles and features, it will pop up the add wizard where we're going to install and select install. So these are standard, you can read and understand, but it's a basic thing. So I'm just going to click next. So this is a role-based feature. It's not a remote desktop feature, it's a role-based feature. So I'm going to leave it as role-based and move next. So when you go next here, if you have got multiple devices, then it will show you all the devices here. Since this is the only machine, I can see only domain controller 01 in this pool. So I'll select the same machine because this is going to be my domain controller. Click next. So on this screen, we're going to select Active Directory Domain Services. This is what we're going to install. So when you click Active Directory Domain Services, it will pop up and say like these are the services and features it's going to install with the Active Directory Domain Controller. So click on Add Features, right? And then click Next, right? So when you click Next, it tells you the additional features that was already been selected, and it lists down if you want to install any other features you can install. But you can see Group Policy Manager is one of the feature that it is going to be installed with these Active Directory services, because remember, once you install the Active Directory, Group Policies becomes one of the feature that you can manage multiple systems using a simple scripts and controls. So that's where we have the Group Policy Management. So click next. This is for the online Azure Active Directory services. If you have got some services on the cloud, so you can connect your Active Directory with your cloud services, but we don't have it, so I'm just going to skip next. So in this point where you can select whether you wanted to restart or not, but it will ask anyway. At the end it will ask you. So yep, I tick it, click install. So now it's installing the Active Directory services, right? So you can see on the top it's installing. So this is just the installation process. Once the service has been installed, then we can see on the top here we will have a small rectangle with the yellow rectangle with the exclamation mark that tells us that there is a service pending to be configured. So see, the service has been installed, close, and now you can see that option here. So click on that. It now says post deployment configuration, which means you have installed the service features and the role, but it's not been configured yet. So I'm going to promote this machine from workgroup. So you can see here it's from workgroup. I'm going to promote this as a domain controller. So click on domain controller. Right, here we have the option to select. So there are three options for you to select. One is add a domain controller to an existing domain, add a new domain to an existing forest, or create a new forest. So these are different options. So if you have already got a forest, then you can create new machine domain controller and add to the existing forest. Forest is a complete hierarchy where you will have multiple domain controllers and child domain controllers. But here, this is your first domain controller on your first new forest. So I'm just going to create new forest, and then you have to give your name. All right, this is your domain name you're going to use it. So I have facetnet.com is my domain name, so I'm going to use it facetnet.com.au, and then click next. Now it's going to ask me the functional levels, right? So this is where we really pick options if in case if you have got computers running with the old operating systems and stuff, you can select it. Say in case if your network has computers running older version, you can pick it here. If you don't have it, you can leave it because everything else is going to be your new system. And then you have a password here. This is called directory service restore mode password, which means if you want to uninstall the domain controller, you have to enter this password. Make sure this must be a different password from your domain administrator password. The only reason is why we need to have a different password is in case if someone accidentally remove, if they don't know the password, they can't do it. So make sure that you have a different password. So I have got the password there, and we are going to continue to the next point where we are going to say continue and click next. Now it's going to pick the NetBIOS name. NetBIOS name is your name that will pick from your domain controller name. So the forest name we have given facetnet.com.au, so it's going to pick facetnet. Next. Right, so move to the next point. It's going to ask us to save where the files. The best practice is not to keep these files in the C drive. So what you can do is you can create another folder somewhere else in a different directory, right? So you can create a file from a different directory if you have got another hard disk. Since I don't have a second disk, so I'm just going to leave it. So the best option is to move to some other places, right? So that is going to be the best practice. So I'm not going to change it, but if you want to change it, you can click here. And if you have the second hard disk, you can select the second hard disk and store into that second hard drive. So move next. It's going to ask for your previous the configurations options just to reconfirm. And if everything is good, then you're going to click next. Now it's checking those conditions, right? Prerequisite is checked. One of the main prerequisites is to have a strong administrator password. If you don't have a strong administrator password, it will come back and give you an error message here. You can see in my case, it has got green tick, which means it's all good. You may get a problem at times if you don't have a stronger password. So in case if you get that option, what you have to do is go to the start menu, right click here, go to computer management, click on local users and groups, group users, administrator, set a password. So if you go proceed, you can set a password here. So give a strong password, then everything should be all right to continue. So I'm not going to do that because I've got the right password, and I'll click install. So now Active Directory services is installing on this computer, right? Let's see how it goes. It'll take a couple of minutes. Once it installs, we will see what's there, what are the changes we can see on the system, right? So it's waiting for the DNS, and of course it will ask you to restart at a point. Yeah, I'm going to wait for a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes. Let's see how long it will take. So you can see, as long as you can see, it's creating directory partitions and all. So once this is done, right, success, it's going to sign out. Yeah, as I said, close. I'm going to close that, and let's restart. It's restarting. So I didn't restart, so the system, so I thought of like I can quickly restart so to save the time, but it's good to leave the system to restart because it might have sort of services running behind and it needs to be shut down properly, right? We don't want to do a hard restart, so let it to go as a soft restart. Once the soft restart is done, you can see now the system will have a different login options, right? Previously it was just like administrator username was there, you just go into the local username, that it's gone in. Now you will have a completely different options, right? Let's go have a look what we have in the logins. It's going to take time to apply all the changes we have done so far. So let's wait for the changes to be applied, and once the changes applied, then we will go and do those, right? So hold on. Um, let's see how long it's going to take. It shouldn't take time. This system is quite faster, so it should go quickly. Let's see how long it will take. All right, now you can see the system is rebooted. So I'm going to log into the system. Let's see what's the difference on the system when you reboot, right? So I'm going to click here. Right, now you can see the login prompt has changed. Earlier it was just like the administrator without the FaceIt.net. It was just the administrator and password. So this tells me that I'm going to log into FaceIt.net domain environment as an administrator. So if you wanted to just go back to a local workgroup login, as in we call it as a computer login, so you can click other user, and if you put, so you can notice here, see here it says faceit.net, right, sign in to. If you want to log into the local computer, you can just put dot backslash and then the administrator name, right, that will go into the local user, right, as a local administrator or local user. So there's a difference between local administrator and a domain administrator. So domain administrator is going to manage every machines on or devices on your network, right? Whereas a local administrator is only specific to this computer. You cannot use that username password on a different computer. So there's a big difference between a local admin and a domain admin. So I'm going to log into the domain admin because I need to manage every machine using this computer. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to enter the password that I picked when I installed the operating system. Technically what happens is my local administrator is being now promoted as a domain administrator account, right? So I'm using that. I logged in. So you can see I'm back to the server, right? So now let's go back to the local server and have a look what changes we can see here. Of course, there are some errors. We will go have a look what these error messages are. So if you click on the services, it tells you right stop services, but it's delayed start. It might start after a couple of seconds. So don't worry about that part. We'll come back and fix that later on if you still have the problem, right? But I'm going to look at it here. I'm going to look at the server. Look at it now. I don't see anymore the workgroup option here. Now I can see faceit net.com.au because it's changed, because it was a workgroup. Now this becomes the domain environment, right, or domain controller. And also I can see Active Directory domain services installed and DNS services is also installed, right? So because the reason when I install the Active Directory, I pick the option, I tick the option to install DNS server. So they both installed, right? So let's close this for a moment, or maybe we'll quickly go and have a look what is inside the Active Directory. So if I go to Active Directory, since it's install Active Directory, you can see these options are appearing here just after we install the Active Directory. Also, we can see group policy management, and also we can see the DNS. So these are all here just because we have installed the Active Directory services. So let's go to Active Directory users and computer. This is where you spend most of your time to manage the network, right? So where you're going to create users and manage things. So when you go here, we can see there's a domain called faceit.net.com.au, right? And there are users. If you double click on the users, right, you will see there is users, right? There are users, right? So there's a couple of users. So if I just move on here, I can see there's an administrator user and a lot of groups. So if you see that this icon, this tells you it's a group. If you see a single man or a single person, that's its user. This is group. So these groups are security groups. It's all created with the Active Directory installation for various reasons. So we will learn why we have these types of different groups, like global groups, universal groups, domain local. So what these ones, we will learn that later on when you go into more depth about Active Directory, right? And also I can see I have got a default user which I created, I believe, before, because my local user had that option initially, right? When I create the computer, I believe I had that option initially. And now you can't see that local users and groups. Why we can't see that? It's because remember, this is no more logged in as a local administrator. I logged in as a domain admin, so I can't see the local profiles or local yeah, profile. So that's the only reason it's not appearing. So if you log in as a local administrator, as I said, on the login prompt, select other users, go to the username field, enter /administrator, and then if you go here, you will see the same local users and groups. If you go down to the administrator user, let's go have a quick look. Properties, right? So that is the property of the administrator user. Is member of, you can see now is member of these many groups. They are all administrator is a groups, domain admin groups, domain users group, enterprise admins, group policy creators, and schema admins. There are different types of administrators and different permission levels they have got, right? So that sort of things we can see. And if you go to an account, you can see that's the user administrator. You can give a name. If you want to give a name, you can give a name here to log in as an administrator. So this is possible for you to configure these options, right? If you wanted to like show your names when you log in nicely on the screen, so what you can do is you can go change here to display them nicely, right? So there's nothing wrong to change, but it's the next step, right? It is more into like customizing part, so I'm not going to go into that level right now, but you can see that you can do that, right? And also you can create new users. So if you, but the best practice is you don't create users directly under users. There's something called organizational units. We will have to create some organizational units to put the users in the right format so it's easy to manage. But again, so those are next levels. I'm going to create a new user to show you how to create a new user. So you don't need to go to each and every computer and create a user now. So all you have to do is you go here, right click, go to new and create user, give a name, right? So you can give a name here, Jules, and of course you can give a name and last name, and then just the login name. So right, give a login name, next, and give a password. Again, your password is based on the complexity you have configured, but here we have 4 options. User must change the password at the login. User cannot change the password. Password never expired. Account disabled. If you click on account is disabled, this account will not be able to use, or they can't use this username and password to log in. But if with this tick, I can't technically tick these 2 options because it says change the password here, but here it says do not change the password. Sort of like contradictory statement. So if you want the users, because remember in a corporate environment, you can't just have a different password every time when you create a new user. So you will go with the default password to every user. And when they log in, the system will prompt to enter a new password. So that's the best practice model we all do. So we can always leave this user must change the password at next login. In case if you don't want the users to change the password, you can tick this option, right? See, it says it's wrong, or you can't do that. For us to do, I need to untick that and then tick here. So now user cannot change the password. Whatever the password that you have given is what he's going to use it forever. And this password will never expire if you click this option. Normally, remember with the password policy, by default, it's going to ask every 42 days time to reset your password. So if you tick this option, it is not going to ask you to reset your password. So I can leave it. I can leave this option, but it is not the best because I'm going to remember I'm going to use their password. So there's no confidential. So password must not be shared with anyone else. So I don't want to see their password. So I'll say user must change the password. Next, finish. So you can see the user yours is created. If you go down to properties, address, account, you can see the name, it's part of that, and login, right, it's not locked. If you click unlock, it's technically unlocked, but it's not been unlocked. He has never logged in anyway. This is a profile. We will go learn why we have this profile, what is the profile path, what is our login script, so you can like have more scripts files like .bat files to load with the operating system with the users. So when they log in, you can see maybe mapping, folder mapping, and things like that. So it's easy, right? And also you can select and you can tell where you wanted to have your home folder. These options, these are sort of like more into information about the user, right? I'm not going to spend too much time to do this stuff. These are like basic things. And users enabled for remote desktop, right? Comes it's for communication purpose, and then member of just the user. So he doesn't have an admin permission, so he can't do sort of like install, delete things and applications on the computer. So if he has to do anything, he has to call the administrator and get the permission to do it. So that's something like the administrator will do things, right? Yep, that's it. Click OK. Done. The user is created. So this is pretty much what we are going to do today, and that's all. So if you got any other question or anything, we discuss later on. All right, I'm gonna close this and let's um, finish this.